Those of you that were on the training calls that a couple of weeks ago, and we did the video there with Dr. Jeffrey demonstrating that, and then we had a lot of questions. Well, how does it work that it's still in the package? And so I've asked him to join us here today. So Dr. Jeffrey, if you would give us your wisdoms this morning, we'd certainly appreciate it, or this evening.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I get a lot of people asking this, and I get a lot of strange looks when I test people using kinesiology. But one thing we have to sort of differentiate for everything really is that the branch of kinesiology that I practice was really followed by Dr. George Goodhart, who is an American chiropractor who started this back in '62, I believe it was. And so there are people out there who are called kinesiologists, and then we call ourselves as basically applied kinesiologists because we have a legal ability to diagnose diseases and all sorts of other things, because that's part of my degree work and what I did, and that sort of sets us apart a lot from the other people. The other thing too is there's a lot of parameters when we're trying to associate a muscle test and to determine whether or not a substance or a thought is good for us. Then we have to ascertain a couple of things. One, what is the health condition of that person to begin with? And this could mean many, many, many things. And then the other thing is, where are we testing that person? What environment are we testing them in? Now, this is really important because I sort of demonstrated this 2 years ago at a show of all my colleagues up in Edinburgh. And I kind of got like a, what type of attitude? And I said to them that all the testing that we're doing in our offices, if we're doing them under false lighting, i.e. fluorescent lights, LED lights, and there's no windows with natural sunlight coming in, you're going to have to question whether or not that light is actually having an effect on that particular person and you as the tester. You see, the thing is with this is our skin takes in that message from the light, and it can be a detrimental message. So therefore, not only is the person testing at a disadvantage, so is the person that's being tested. So one of the things that you have to establish, if you are going to do a testing of anything, it doesn't matter what it is, you could be asking your spouse, do you love me or do you love my neighbor more, or something crazy like that. These are all things you can muscle test with, but you do have to establish that it has to be under a natural light condition as much as possible. You may have some light that's going in here, like I've got this floor lamp over there, but it's not on. But I've got light coming in naturally from the side here. Even this picture in the background, that light right there is probably one of the most important lights that you would want to work with, because it contains infrared A, and this is what happens in the morning and at sunset. It's 42% of it is infrared A. This is the message that light is telling us to do, is to be balanced, because it has an enormous effect on our neurological system. So those are sort of the parameters that you have to look at when anybody wants to test. And then you want to go, well, what am I going to test? So for us, we want to test how good this stuff is. You see that? It goes against sort of the background, but we want to test Immunical, and we want to test it with a person that may have a health challenge. And we want to see whether or not Immunical is going to be advantage for them, and then how much. So we have to look at those things. So let's just take, and the prime example that I use in my clinic is an amalgam filling. So anyone who's got black fillings in their mouth, we already know that they are going to be toxic with mercury. They're going to be toxic probably with aluminium. The word amalgam means a bunch of metals in a tooth to stop it from decaying. And mercury is the predominant one. The buzzword in the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, I think it was like 4 years ago, was we needed to raise the glutathione levels in not only patients, but the dentist and the assistants that are in and around the patient that's getting the extraction of the amalgam filling. And this is a nice, easy one to do because there are loads of people who've got amalgam filling. So it's quite nice and easy. What you would do is you take a finger of the tester, of the person that you're testing, and get him to put a finger on the, say that, let's hypothetically say it's the molar, and you do that. That's one of the areas that you can test. Now what you want to do is look at, well, what muscle am I going to use? For me, if I have a patient lying down on the table, on the back, I tend to use the quad muscle, which is in the front here. If you're standing up or sitting down, nice easy one is the deltoid. Very easy. So what you want to do is first establish what muscle you're going to use. Let's say we'll use the deltoid because most people can understand this one really simply, and this is what's used a lot in a lot of testing, and I've seen it being used and abused and misunderstood at the same time. The whole idea is if you got a strong muscle, so if you got a strong deltoid, you could test it like this at 90 degrees, and this is a middle deltoid test, or you could do an anterior deltoid test. You choose, doesn't matter. But what you want to do is be able to switch that muscle off. So a lot of our muscles are based around the meridian system, and there are areas where we can switch on the muscle, switch off the muscle, and we can actually take in, we can take energy from one muscle area to a different area as well. And this is all using the meridian systems within this kinesiology portfolio. So when we're looking at that, let's take the anterior deltoid, because this is so easy for most people. Arm goes out, and that arm has to be dead straight, right? None of this like that, none of this like that. You do this. Now, for some people, they may have an elbow problem, and they won't be able to fully extend that arm. Check the other one then. If that is okay, and you get a full extension of the arm, and it's straight out like this, then you could ask the person, push up. And all you're doing is matching their effort to push up. So you do this, and you push up, and you match it. You don't overpower it, and you don't allow them to overpower you. It takes a bit of a skill to do this. It takes a while. But once you get the use to it, you just keep on testing it with people. Test, 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 and you get it. You could do the lightest tests. The more proficient you become at it, you don't even have to, let's put it this way. I could test the muscle, and I already know the answer before I even know, because the muscle disengages immediately when there's a wrong thing. And that's some people that I never expected before, but I do. I sense that now, and I don't think any of my other colleagues, I've never really talked to them about that, because it's kind of a bizarre feeling when you get to do this, when you actually start to feel the muscle go and they haven't even engaged in it. So subconsciously, they're already going to a test that could be either positive or negative. So that's the one you do. Now you want to be able to switch the muscle off, and to switch the muscle off on the deltoid, it's quite easy. You can either rub in the part here where you bend your elbow. So that is one spot there, and you just sort of rub it, and you'll feel actually the bicep tendon going into the ulnar radius bones here. But it's right in there. You give that a good old rub. Don't kill them, because it can be painful. You do that for about 2 seconds, and you retest the muscle, and it should weaken. If it doesn't weaken, then you know they have a problem, and we call that a hypertonic muscle, or a muscle that has too much tone. If they have that, you cannot go forward with a test that will give you a result that you could rely on. Now that's really key, because people won't register that. If you can't switch the muscle off by either rubbing in here, or if you want to get really fancy, the deltoid is on the lung meridian, and it runs from here, which is called the coracoid process, here to that little wee bit right here in your hand here. And if you rub that backwards, that meridian backwards, you create a negative energy which will switch that muscle off. That's the fancy way of doing it. There's even more fancier ways, but we won't get into that. Suffice to say, if you rub this little guy here, you'll get a result by switching that anterior deltoid muscle off. It will work also for the medial deltoid. So if you've, let's say you've established that you're able to switch them off, now you want to test them with the substance that is either going to be good or bad for them. So you will test them, and the prime example, if you want to, depending what you want to do, if you've got the amalgam filling, get them to put a finger on that amalgam and test them. And I will say about 10 times out of 10, they'll fail. And then you get them to hold one of the sachets of Immunical. Doesn't matter what one, you get them to hold that. Where they want to hold it, just hold it in the opposite hand. That's fine. Or if you're a tester and you want to take them out of the question, you can put this right up here, but make sure it's always skin to skin if you can, because this has got a force in it. This is even more powerful. It's a live product. If you go out to your GNC shops or your other shops where you can buy individual sachets, or what do you call them, pouches, is it? Sachets of whey protein, and you compare them, you'll come up with the same results. When you compare an amalgam filling with the Immunical, they will always get stronger, even when you try to switch the muscle off. And that's the key thing. So you're doing this. I'll get Miriam here in a second. We'll demonstrate it. But we do this. We wiggle this. We can shut it off. Get them to put a finger on the bad bits there, and then they'll go weak. Guaranteed. You get them to hold this, or you hold it and put it on their chest here if they've got a V-neck. You can even put it on their face if you want. Doesn't matter. Just get them to hold it. Has to be skin to skin. You retest them with the finger on the tooth, and you go to switch it off, and what happens? And this is the biggest thing where you have to interpret. If it goes strong, then you know that this is good. If there's no change, then this is no good. So let me demonstrate that, but I'm going to do it with something different. We're going to take a different angle here. What we're going to do is, this is my favorite one. I love this. This really gets people. So somebody's gone to the gym and they've just worked out, yeah? What happens when they go to the gym and they work out a lot? They create a lot of, anybody? Free radicals, right? They create more of what we call a hydroxy radical. And this is the one that we do not have any enzymes to break down. So you're asking the cell to make more energy. So I've got Miriam here. We're going to test her with this. This is bleach. So you shake it up. Now bleach is creates quite an oxidative storm in the body and creates a lot of free radical production immediately because it's noxious stuff. Now you could either smell it, or guess what? You can just hold it because it has a vitality to it. It has an energy to it. We're all energy beings. Everything has a vibration. Even rocks vibrate. You could test rocks if you wanted to. It'd be really exciting. So I'm going to just get Miriam to come into the picture here. Come on in the front there.
Hello.
And turn this way so you're facing the screen. So again, what I'm going to do is take this deltoid muscle, lock it up down, okay? And then if you support the shoulder up here and you're standing this way, don't stand in front of them, stand here, lock, and then you push up. And I'm just matching what she pushes up. So push up really strong. And I have to match what she does. That's what you'll find at first. People go, particularly the real big, muscly guys, right? And you don't need that. Just push up. Boom. Okay, so let's switch the muscle off by wiggling this bit here. Lock, push up. And she goes, okay? And so what we're going to do is hold this stuff here. You can get her to hold it with the same arm. Lock and push up. And she can't do it because it's noxious. But we say, okay, madam, hold on to this. She's got the platinum, so lock, push up. And I'm really pushing. And I am really pushing. And I wiggle this middle bit here I told you about. Lock your arm and push up. Now we can switch her off. Now that's key. If I couldn't switch her off, this didn't work. The platinum didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's say what do I got here?
You've got great.
Okay, we've got a gooseberry here, right? Take a gooseberry. And just want to say something about if it's a natural product, which is what Immunical is, and this is why it works. What will happen if we do something that's natural versus unnatural? So it's in there. We already know we can switch the muscle off. We want to see, does this make her weak? Push up. No, it makes her strong. So when we have a product that's good, or you could even do this as a suggestion, okay, like this. This is where it gets really silly. Lock and say, I don't like Immunical.
I don't like Immunical.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Push. Yeah, right. So that's a total lie because her subconscious already knows it does work. So she just told herself a lie and her subconscious going, no way, dear. And boom. And these are some of the things that you can use with kinesiology and have a lot of fun with it as well. But what you can also do is if somebody's doing an amalgam filling and you test them with this, a platinum or a classic, doesn't matter, a blue one, I call them classic. It's like Coke, and when they had Coke and what's the new Coke free, whatever it was, way back in the 80s when they introduced the new one. And when you do that, if they go weak with the Immunical, then there's one thing that can tell you. There's not enough in their system. So you give them another one. And then you give them another one. You stack the sachets, as many as you do, until you get a result. And when you do that, you know how far down the rabbit hole they are with glutathione. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, great. So when we have this is an indication about how you do this. Now, we know that there's one particular disease that is short of glutathione, and that's asthmatics. And I know because I'm one of them. And one of the things that you can do with these type of people or anybody else that you know from the literature that you could say that they are chronically short of glutathione, and there's several diseases out there that have literature to show that, some data to show that, some good data. You can then do that same technique where you're trying to find out how many sachets they may need, how many times a day they need to take it, and you ask that person because the body knows, and intuitively that person's subconscious knows when it senses something really good for themselves, they will tell you what is good. This is why you can then tap into people's subconscious, and there's a great book that was written by what's his name? It's called Power versus Force, and what he did is he used kinesiology to assess different states of mind, different religions. He tested the frequency of music and all of these things. So we know that the power of using kinesiology is quite a good tool to use to gauge with the person that you're speaking with in regards to how the power of this product, and as I said before, this is a live product, okay? If you wanted to get really fancy, you could put a little bit on their tongue, and then you know definitively that it will work because instantaneously, oh, David Hawkins, that was who it was, thank you, Power versus Force. Read the book, it's fascinating. But you can put this on your tongue, and also, if you're using a product, let's say you're using Hershey's chocolate, right? I'm not a big fan of Hershey's chocolate at all, but you do that and you get something that's natural chocolate, and you can test them on that, and then find out the viability, whether or not that substance is good for their body or not. So when it comes to this, and you guys have all your extra products out there as well, you can test this with Keith's favorite product, Extra Shot, and you'll probably come up with the same thing. And all the other products that are in the lineup with Mutatech. I can't think of one product that would be dodgy at all, because everything they've made has basic scientific rigor there, and it would probably muscle test really well. I haven't tested anything but Immunical and is it Optimizer, the fruit and veg? That's the sachet.
Yes, that's the new one that you guys are just getting.
Yeah, we're getting the energy one, but you guys had the fruit and veg one. Yeah.
They're they're similar.
Yeah. I tested the one that's the fruit and vegetables in it, the very big first one that came out. I've tested several people on that and had wonderful result where it was really, really a positive thing for that person to take. So when we're doing muscle testing or kinesiology, we have to take into account, one, the environment that you're doing it in, watch the lighting, try to do natural light as much as possible. If they're wearing electronic stuff or they've got their phone on them, tell them to get rid of it, because this causes a real big problem. Because remember, these things are sending out signals and receiving signals at an alarming rate, and it's damaging our physiology. So if you have that, you can actually test this with the Immunical and see how resilient the physiology of our body gets when you start taking Immunical, when this system here creates a problem in our physiology. And you could probably do that for Wi-Fi in the house, depending on where you are with the Wi-Fi. And pretty much anything that diminishes our electrical potential as human beings. And one of the biggest things that does that is amalgam filling. So if you imagine, if somebody's got a gold crown and an amalgam filling, oh my God, these guys need Immunical and they need to go to the dentist right away because they've got a battery in their mouth. And saliva is a great conduit of those two dissimilar metals. And one of the things that we know that glutathione does is it absorbs heavy metals. So whatever heavy metals they're leaking into their system, we know that Immunical is going to help, and we can muscle test on this. You can pretty well muscle test on lots of things, but that's the basic stuff that anybody could practice the anterior deltoid, switching it off and going that way. If you can't switch it off, there are other means that you could test them with. You could test them with the calcium. That's a prime example. You guys have the calcium thingy. Test them with that. We need calcium to switch on a muscle and magnesium to switch it off. Maybe they don't have enough calcium in there, so test them with the calcium. Maybe test them with the multivitamin. Maybe they just need a little bit of this, this, and this in order to stabilize that muscle. Tell them to breathe in and hold. Test them. Maybe they have a cranial problem or a sacral problem, and they need to go see the chiropractor. You can do that. So there's a lot of different things you can assume when you're doing the testing, but to do the simple basic stuff, it's real simple. Just what I did on Miriam is you do this anterior deltoid test, nice and simple, stabilize the shoulder, push down, and test the substance that they are wanting to know whether it is good for them or bad for them. So that could be everything from a tooth that's bad. So then you get a gauge of what this thing's doing. Working out, another good thing. Then you could test them with mobile phones like I did in the other one. That's a really good thing. So you find something that's going to decrease their physiology, which will make them weak, and you find something that's going to bring it back that makes them strong. That is the basis of the whole thing. Keith, that's pretty much really the nutshell. It goes into much, much greater detail, but that's the basic that everybody could do. It could really demonstrate quite easily and effectively to show how good Immunical can bring our body back to a physiological balance, or what we call homeostasis, by increasing our resiliency within our physiology.
And you can do that with a number of things, including inexpensive table salt, because that's not good for most people. Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a number of other things to do that with. Well, thank you, Dr. Jeffrey, because that's what we want. We have the questions, want people to know how to take advantage of this and understand it a little bit more. And we really appreciate you taking the time here on this Saturday to do that. We got that there. Okay, I think I got it set where everybody. Yeah. Okay, let me go back and click that. So, all right, everybody can unmute themselves now that want to. So thank you, Dr. Jeffrey. Really appreciate you sharing that.
Pleasure. Anytime.
That knowledge there. Okay. All right. So that's what we've got here this morning, Mr. Solider.